Okay, so first of all, I have data here with some missing values, and all of the missing values are represented by the letters NA for not available. And I want to investigate all of the missing data in this table. So the first thing that I'm going to do is work out the total number of NAs that I have. And in order to do that, I'll use the COUNTIF formula. The range that I'll count is this range here, and then the criteria is going to be NA, and this needs to be in quotation marks because it is text. And that will count how many NAs are in this column, and it's 544. Then I next want to count the total number of observations. And that is going to be how many numbers are in this column. And I can just use the count formula for that, as that counts the number of numbers. So that gets me 3,474. Then I want to find out what the overall total is. And I can do that by counting the number of dates that there are, as I know that there are no missing days. And I get 4,018. And I could also work that out from the row number in the bottom row. And I can also do the total NAs plus the total observations to find out the overall total. Then I also want to know what the percent is. So I'll do total NA divided by the total, and that will get me 14%. So 14% of the data is missing. Now I have a measurement for every day going from 2011 to 2021. And so the next thing that I want to work out is how many missing data points there are in each year. So the first thing I need to do is get the year from the date. And I'll do that using the year formula. And then double click to send that down. Then I can type 2011 here and hold down Control and click and drag until I get to 2021. And then I will use a COUNTIFs formula, as this time we are counting two different criteria. The first criteria range will be the years column here. And I need to press F4 to make that an absolute cell reference, so that when I drag the formula down, it doesn't change. And the first criteria is this year here. Then the second criteria range is going to be the concentrations column here. And again, that needs to be an absolute cell reference. And then the criteria is again NA in quotation marks. So I'm counting the number of NA in each year. And double click to send that formula down. And if I sum up all of these values, it will get me back to the same number that I had up here. So this is the total NA. And then I also want to find out what the overall total is. So I will drag this formula across and then drag the year back again and delete the NA criteria, as now I am just counting how many values there are in each year. And so as I have daily measurements, this gets me either 365 or 366 in leap years. Then I also want to find out how many observations I have in each year. And so that is going to be the total minus the number of missing values. Then we'll also calculate the percent. And that will be the total NA divided by the overall total. And double click to send that down. And now we want to plot this in a bar chart. So I'll select these values here and go to Insert and insert a 100% stacked bar chart. Then we'll format this. Press Ctrl 1 to open up the formatting bar, And for the y-axis, I want this to go from earlier years at the top to later years at the bottom. And in order to do that, I will tick categories in reverse order. This puts the x-axis at the top, so in order to fix that, I'll change horizontal axis crosses to at maximum category to put it back on the bottom. Then I'll also remove the line from the axes. And I also want to remove the outer border, so I'll change that to no line. And then we'll format the bars. So I'll change the gap width to 0 so that there's no gap, and then give it a white border and make it wider. Then change the fill for the NA values to grey, and then format this bar as well to have a white border and make it wider, and then change the fill here to blue. Then I'll give this a title, and then change the NA here to be bold and make it the same colour as the bars. And do the same thing for this one here, make it bold and make it blue. Then I'll also add in data labels. So we'll select this bar here and add data labels, then select the data labels and change them to values from cells, and select the percentages here and OK. Then remove the values and change it to inside base and make the font white. And now we have a bar chart showing the amount of missing data in each year. So we'll see that 2017 is the best year with only 1% of the data missing, and 2014 is the worst year with 46% of the data missing. And then all of the other years are somewhere between 5% and 18%. The next thing we're going to do is plot the whole time series. So I'll go to Insert and insert a scatter plot. Then right click and select Data and add in a new series. The series name will be this here. The X values will be all of the dates. And then the Y values will be the concentrations. And OK again. And now we have all of the data plotted. But at the moment, all of the missing values are 0 on the x-axis, so we need to fix this. I'll just quickly format the chart. Now, in order to remove the missing data, I'll add in 2 more columns here, and then copy this whole column to the side. Then go to Find and Replace. And I will be searching for all of the NAs and replacing them with #n/A. And this is Excel's error message for missing values. And then replace all. And this replaces 444 values, which is the total number of NAs that we found before. Then we can select this series here and drag the range across so it's now plotting this column. And all of the missing values disappear. Now we do actually want to have the missing values plotted, but as a separate series. So I'll make a new column here for the missing data. And for this we'll use an if formula, and if is number. So if this is a number, then it's not a missing data point, and so I don't want it to be plotted in this column. So I will turn it into an NA error. And if it's not a number, then it is a missing data point, and I do want it to be plotted in this column. And so I will change this into a number, and I will make it a number at the bottom of the y-axis here. So I'll make it 380. And then double click to send this down. And now all of the numbers have turned into NA errors, and all of the missing data has become 380. And now I'll copy this whole column here and paste it into this chart. And now they've all changed to orange dots at the bottom. and I want to add error bars to these dots. Now I will press Ctrl 1 to open up the formatting bar again and use the drop-down list to select the X error bars. And I don't actually want these error bars, so I'll delete them, and then I will select the Y error bars. And I will change these to be just plus and no cap, change the error amount to a fixed value, and I want the error bars to go from the bottom of the Y-axis to the top, so from 380 to 460, and so that's a gap of 80. And of course that completely messes up the Y-axis, so we now need to fix this. I'll change the minimum to 380 and the maximum to 460. Then select the error bars again and change these so they are a light orange, and just say yes to this. Then I don't want to be able to see the markers at the bottom, so I'll go to marker options and change them to none. Then at the moment the error bars are overlapping a little bit with the borders at the top and the bottom, so I'm going to fix this by moving the error bars up a little here. So I'll change this from 380 to 380.2 and then double click to send that down. Then I'll also make the error bars a little bit shorter to get rid of the overlap at the top and change 80 to 79.6. And now the error bars are no longer overlapping. And so in this chart here, every one of the missing data points is represented by a vertical orange line. And this is a useful way of visualizing the missing data, as there are quite a lot of data points and they're all quite clumped together. So the very short gaps aren't really that visible unless you plot it like this. And we can also see similar things to what we saw in the bar chart. So 214 was quite a bad year with lots of missing data, and 2017 was quite a good year with not very many missing data points. Now the next thing that we're going to look at is the length of the gaps. So I am going to make all these columns here thinner as we don't need them anymore, and then insert 2 more columns here and call these both gaps. And I will put 0 in this cell here as the first row does not have a missing value. And all of the rest of the cells will be an if formula. And it will be if this here is equal to NA, then I want it to give me this value here plus 1. And then if it's not an NA, I want it to show me a 0 and enter. And then double click and send it down. And now this here is an NA, so it will give me 0 plus 1, which gets me 1. And then here is another NA, so now it's doing 1 plus 1, which will get me 2. And everything else is a 0. And if I scroll down to the next gap in the data, then you'll see this here is also counting up by 1 each time until we get to 36, and then it goes back down to 0. Now I can't just count all of the ones in this column to find out how many gaps there are that are 1 day long, and that is because this here, this gap is 2 days long and it still has the number 1 here and then the number 2 below it. So what I need to do is to remove all of the smaller numbers and just have the largest number at the bottom of each gap. And so in order to do that, I am going to do this number here minus this number and enter, and then double click and send it down. And now this here is 0 minus 1, which gets me minus 1. This here is 1 minus 2, which gets me minus 1 again. And then this here is 2 minus 0, which gets me the number 2. And if I scroll down, you'll also see that all of these numbers have changed to minus 1, as I'm always subtracting a number which is 1 bigger, until I get to 36 at the bottom here, which is still 36. So this has changed all of the numbers which aren't the biggest number to minus 1. Now I also want to get rid of all the negative numbers, so I'm going to put the max formula around this. And this will be number 1 here, and then number 2 will be 0. And so if this is a negative number, then the maximum will be 0, and so that will be the result that I get. So basically what this formula is doing is saying if it is a negative number, replace it with 0. And then I'll double click to send that down, and now you'll see that all of the negative numbers have disappeared and I only have the largest number at the bottom of each gap. And you'll also see that down here as well. I have 36 here and everything else has changed to 0. So now I can count the numbers in this column. The first thing I need to do is find out what the largest gap is. So that's going to be the maximum of this column here, which is 118. So my longest gap is 118 days long. So then I will put 1 here and hold down Control and click and drag until I get to 118. And this will be the length of the gaps. And then here we'll have the number of occurrences of each gap. So we'll do equals count if again, and the range will be this range here. And I need to press F4 to make that an absolute cell reference so it won't change when I send the formula down. And the criteria will be this number here, and enter. And then double click to send it down. And now we'll see that there are 32 gaps that last for 1 day and 7 gaps that last for 2 days. And if I go down to the bottom of this table, there is 1 gap that lasts 118 days. Now I have a bunch of zeros in here that I don't want. So I'm going to filter this table and remove all of the zeros and OK. Then I will copy this table here and paste it below. And I will paste it with formulas as I want to keep all of the formulas. Then I can go back up to the top of this table and clear the filters and then delete all of this table. And shift cells up and OK. And now I have the much shorter table with all of the zeros removed. Now I also want to count the number of NAs. So I'm going to do that by timesing this number and this number together, and then double click to send it down. So if I have 32 gaps that are 1 day long as I have daily data, that will get me 32 NAs. But then I have 7 gaps that are 2 days long, and of course each of those will have 2 NAs, so I'll end up with 14 NAs altogether. And at the bottom of the table, I have 1 gap which is 118 days long, and so that will get me 118 NAs. And if I do sum and sum all of this column, then that gets me 544, which is the same number as I got up here. Now I also want to calculate the percent. So that is going to be equals the sum of this value here. Then I'll type in the colon to get me a second copy of that cell reference, and then press F4 to make the first cell reference an absolute cell reference. But I won't do that to the second cell reference, so this one will move as the formula goes down, and so the range will expand. And then I'll divide this by the total, and I will also make this an absolute cell reference so this doesn't change. And then I'll send this formula down and format it as a percent. And so you'll see here that the range is expanding as I go down the table. And we know this has worked correctly as we end up with 100% at the bottom. So 6% of the missing data is caused by gaps that are 1 day long, and 8% of the missing data is caused by gaps that are 1 or 2 days long. And then if we go down here, we'll see that 51% of the missing data is caused by gaps that are 2 weeks long or less. And then we have 4 gaps at the bottom that are more than a month long, and they are responsible for 42% of the missing data. Now the next thing that we'll do is make a frequency table. So I want to see how many gaps are 1 day long, how many are 1 day to 1 week long, how many are 1 week to 1 month, and then how many gaps are greater than 1 month. And I need to put 0 in here, and then 1 here. And then for these ones, it needs to be the higher end of the range. So this will be 7 for 7 days or 1 week. And then I will say that a month is 31 days long. And I don't need to put anything in this cell here. Then I need to select all of these cells and then do equals frequency. The data array will be the second gaps column here. And then the bin arrays needs to be these cells here. And then I will close brackets, and this time I need to press Control, Shift and Enter, as this is an array formula and I need the results in multiple cells. So these zeros here are all of the zeros in this column, which are all of the values that do actually have a number. And then here there are 32 gaps which are 1 day long, which we already knew from this table up here. And then there are 34 gaps that are between 1 day and 1 week long, 12 gaps that are between 1 week and 1 month long, and 4 gaps that are longer than a month, which we already knew from the bottom of this table as well. If I add up all of the occurrences of the gaps that are between 2 days and 7 days long, then that will get me 34, which is the same number here. So these two tables are showing me similar things, but this table is showing me all of the individual gap lengths, and this one here is grouping them together. Okay, so in this video I have shown you how to investigate missing data in Excel, and that is everything.